Atheist Nomads, episode 216, Baptism by Hurricane.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin. Joining me is Lauren.
Hello! And Rocco.
Yep, who always barks when Lauren says hello.
He thinks it's howling.
Justin is back.
Hello.
And his mysterious chauffeur, Stray, is also with us. Ryan.
Hi.
And you all now know about as much about Ryan as I do. This will be fun.
Yes.
And I know about as much about this podcast as you know about me.
Yep.
This is mystery. Yes, I like to wild card things, as some might say.
So how's everybody doing?
Good.
Pretty good.
We're not in a hurricane. We're not on fire.
You can breathe in Boise today.
You
That's
can actually
fantastic.
breathe. So we're actually doing really well.
Are we in the eye of the apocalypse?
Yeah. It's passed over. Just waiting for a volcano to go off.
Yeah, we spent most of this past week ranging between unhealthy and very unhealthy air quality, and it's been just moderate this weekend. So that's been wonderful. We can see the sun.
The sun is pinkish orange instead of black. So this is a big deal.
I only need to use my inhaler like 3 times a day instead of like 7.
Yeah. Now, of course, Hurricane Harvey's devastation is still devastating and terrible and horrible and atrocious.
But that was so last week.
Now there's even worse horrors.
Don't call Irma a whore. She doesn't.
Horrors, not horrors.
Just because it's a female name.
She is in Florida. She's headed for Florida. I mean,
I was talking about horrors as in horror movies, not
little houses of them.
Horrors as in porn.
Porn stars are not whores either.
That is true.
Okay,
that is true.
Just all right. As long as you acknowledge that.
I am just going to shut up now.
As long as you film it, it's not prostitution, right?
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're an actress.
I think the big distinction is if both people are getting paid, it's
classically
not prostitution. If only one party is being paid, then it is.
There's got to be
I don't know how I
crossover.
never made that connection, but thank you.
So anyway, hurricanes are terrible. They're bad. Irma is, as we're recording, destroying Florida piece by piece.
Especially around the Fort Myers area.
Yeah.
Shout out to my Uncle Kyle, who may not even be there. I don't know. He may have fled the country.
Hopefully not the country, because the Bahamas got hit pretty hard, too.
Yeah, that's true. That would serve him right to decide to buy some land in the Bahamas this spring right before terrible, terrible hurricanes rip through them.
Yeah.
I bet Georgia is bummed right now, man. Bunch of refugees there.
So many refugees.
They're going to get hit, too. They have now declared all of Georgia to be in a state of emergency.
All those peaches.
Oh, so it's moving more inland.
After it finishes going through all of Florida, it will then go through all of Georgia and probably Alabama. This is a freaking insanely huge storm. It'll be a tropical storm by the time it hits Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia's like the base of the shaft. Alabama's kind of the balls. Florida's the rest of the peni.
Irma's only classified because that's the highest classification, right?
Right? It should be Category 6. They need to make up a new category for this one.
It's back down to a 3 at this point.
Woo-hoo.
But we're recording on Sunday, and last report I saw was a 3 and had sucked up Tampa Bay.
I thought the Gulf was going to push it back into a 4. The warm Gulf water.
It did. So it was a 3 over Cuba, then went back to a 4 to hit the Keys, and then it weakened back to a 3, and by the time it gets to Tallahassee, it's supposed to be down to a 1. And
then no problems.
Some respite, I suppose. Then you can.
The
call
worst
it
is
that.
over.
Yeah,
and when this comes out, then we'll be worrying about Jose.
Yep, which is potentially going to hit New England, New York,
and then there's Katia right behind that.
And
now
Katia,
too, right?
Actually, Katia formed in the Gulf and is in Mexico right now.
Oh,
right over all the earthquake devastation.
Oh, perfect.
Well, opposite coast. So the eastern coast of Mexico is getting flooded and devastated by hurricane, while the southwestern coast got a magnitude 8+ earthquake. So, yeah.
Natural disasters for everyone.
The western U.S. is on fire. I believe that leaves the Midwest as the place to be right now.
They are going to have the worst blizzarding winter ever.
If not, the I'm just going to be upset.
They're just waiting for the auto industry to come back. Like they've been through enough.
We have screwed with nature. Nature is mad. The hurricanes, and this is an important distinction with climate change, and I've seen a number of very clear pointing out of this is that global warming will not be causing more hurricanes, or at least more tropical storms. It will be making the ones that happen worse.
Yeah, because the surface temperature of the water heats up, and so there's more water vapor, which did more energy in the storm, and right?
Yep. So getting hit this much right one after another, that really sucks.
But it's coincidence.
We can there's a coincidental element, but also the fact that they are all getting so strong is because of how warm the water is.
Yes.
That is directly fueling them. So Jose is up to a category 5
which a month ago
now.
would have been like, oh man, I totally wish I was hanging out in those waters, nice and warm.
So in a colder global environment, would some of these just have fizzled out as tropical storms that never would have even approached the mainland?
And they probably would have been category 3 at their worst, not 3 or 4, probably not 5.
5 plus.
Yeah, 5 plus. 5 because we don't have anything above a 5. The forest fires that we're having in the western U.S. right now, it's not all caused by climate change. A big portion of it is caused by our insane obsession with putting out every single fire, meaning that the forests aren't getting cleaned out.
Well, yeah, because I'm a big proponent of forestry. Like, proper forestry is a forest saver. It's a good idea. Mm-hmm. But they can't actively log every forest and keep it safe, and so you have to let some of these things burn down and have the natural process take place. And it's really hard for people to wrap their head around that too. Like when you talk about, oh, we'll just let it burn, and
we need to let a lot of it burn. It is terrible, it is horrible, it sucks to breathe, but we've been suppressing fires so much that, and with the way logging has been done up until it's always been done poorly.
Yeah.
It's been either way too much and too reckless, or it's been restricted to the point of not doing anything to counteract
or only
what we're doing.
Only in such small areas that it's not effective on a large scale.
We're not talking like the 400,000 acres in Montana that's on fire. We're talking, they go in and they clear out 50 acres.
Yeah.
And the clearing out is thinning. But with all the clear cuts that were going on for so long, you've got a bunch of young trees that are packed too tight, and the forests are just burning straight through, as opposed to having a mature, healthy forest mix of ages and species. And so everything we've done with forest management has been terrible. There is a way to do it right so that everybody wins. We just haven't ever really tried it.
Well, that requires legislation, and so good fucking luck, man.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, that involves industries, and nothing goes forward when it comes to industries.
Yeah. So anyway, so that there's a huge element that is just, we've been fucking with everything way too much. You add climate change to the mix, and this summer has been hotter than it should be. The last several summers have been hotter. The last 2 years were droughts. This year was a very ridiculously record wet winter and warm, wet spring, which means tons of fuel, with a ridiculously hot summer, which means amazing tinder for every single spark of lightning.
Yep.
And definitely going to swipe right on that one.
Yeah. I was hoping somebody would make a joke off of that one. So, yes, it all is terrible. It sucks.
Tinder. Got it. Clever.
Yes. Foundation Beyond Belief is still raising money for Hurricane Harvey victims. I am sure they will very soon be starting to raise money for Hurricane Irma victims. And if Jose hits land in North America, they'll be raising money for that as well. You can also always donate at the American Red Cross, where they are currently doing their big drive for Irma.
Hasn't the overwhelming response been to not give Red Cross a single dime? You didn't hear about that? No. Red Cross is, out of the, what do they get? How many millions of dollars they got for what was that last big earthquake in the Haiti?
Okay.
They built 6 houses.
Oh,
Wow.
And most of the money went
Administrative
disappeared.
fees or something? Or
No, not even that. Just gone.
wow.
People pocketed it and walked away.
Okay. Normally, the American Red
Cross is great for
is
blood. Maybe not so much for money.
They are the largest disaster relief
That's
entity.
It's not FEMA.
It could just be a fad thing.
They
too.
do more
People are
than,
like, oh,
than
no.
FEMA. Anyway, they are worth considering. As far as charities go, they're still better than like the American Cancer Society, which spends more money on advertising what they do than actually doing anything.
Interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to dusting off the degree. So we've already talked about the hurricanes, but now we need to talk about baptism. And yes, I did a very uncool play on words with the title of the episode, but oh well.
It made me
Wasn't
cringe.
that
It
bad.
made me laugh. It made me cry. It was great.
Yeah. So anyway, for this week's dusting off the degree, we're going to look at baptism. And it needs to start with Jewish ritual cleansing. And there are 2 forms. There's the Netalat Yadayim, a ritual hand washing with a cup, but the more relevant portion is the Tevilah, which is a full body immersion in a mikveh or a live spring. And in modern practice, it is most common in Orthodox Judaism and to a lesser extent in conservative Judaism. And the cleansing takes place as a requirement for conversion and basically after any kind of genital discharge, including after sex.
Really?
Yeah.
So every time you pee,
Well, urine's fine.
because that's a general.
But
Any kind of
like if you
urine,
have
vaginal
gonorrhea.
discharge, blood, any semen.
So my mom is Orthodox, and this makes me very uncomfortable because now I'm thinking about her genitals.
I think about your mom's genitals all the time. And there's nothing uncomfortable about that, dude.
Fact, though.
Your mom
that's a real
joke.
thing.
That's amazing.
Okay. So then per the rules of Orthodox Judaism, you are a Orthodox Jew.
Absolutely. And until like a little bit ago, I could have claimed my birthright and gone to Israel, but I missed the boat on that one. I had like 6 months after she converted where I still qualified.
Okay. Huh. And also some will do this ritual cleansing, specifically men, Orthodox men, before some holidays and even before morning prayers.
Wow, that's. I was always told you're baptized once. That's it, man. One and done.
No, that's Christianity.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
but
everything's watered down
Well,
by the time it gets there.
This is the whole the lens to the whole Jewish people are very clean stereotype slash historical significance. I mean, the plague wiped out Europe except for where all the Jews went because they were clean. They were washing all the time.
Well, if every time
That's
you
handy.
have sex, you have to take a bath.
Which you probably should.
Yeah.
By the way,
a
Then
ritual bath.
I would bathe like every 4 years, dude. It would be fantastic.
Okay, every time you masturbate, you have to take a bath.
Oh my god, I'd bathe 12 times a day.
Yeah,
This
your
is
water bill would be
getting
through
out
the
of
roof.
control.
there's the cleanliness right there.
Yep. Anyway, so Christianity took this practice, but they of course modified it. And so there's still the cleansing portion, with it washing away your sins as part of conversion. But it's also described as a death of your sinful self in a watery grave, and then
God.
you being resurrected, sanctified.
Dope.
Just to start over again and have to do it like 20 minutes later.
It just reminds me of that scene from what was that? Was that Hell on Wheels? No, no, Boardwalk. I don't remember. Some show where they're doing a baptism, but the guy was like really angrily baptizing this guy and drowns him.
Yeah, that was Hell on Wheels.
Yeah, it was like that was disturbing.
He was getting baptized, and he drowned the guy that was baptizing him.
Wash
No,
the fuck away
this was a
from that
different
guy's
show.
sins.
Oh,
where this guy was just like, she's like, you're going to get baptized, and this Jewish guy's like, no,
okay.
I'm not. He's like, yes, you are, and so he started dunking him, and then yelling at him, and then holding him down too long, and he drowned, and it was like, oh, he's
Well,
two
yeah.
deaths.
At least he got to be in the loving arms of Jesus after he died. I think you guys are missing the bigger picture.
Oh yes. This is,
Yeah.
What if you had a thing though where like religious ceremony turned you on so that like every time you masturbated, you had to take a bath, which would give you a boner, which would make you, and you got caught in this feedback loop of just jerking off and taking naps. Or
Okay,
baths.
you're back on the Jewish
Baths
form.
and
We've moved on to Christianity.
Okay, sorry, I'm living in the past.
In Christianity, sex doesn't happen. You have to make sure that's very clear. Christians don't have sex because it's squicky.
They have sexes.
Well,
maybe, definitely.
Yeah.
They only have sex to make more Christians.
Yeah. Yep.
Hopefully.
But anyway, so the whole death cult thing of Christianity is very, very true. You look at every part of the process, you are celebrating death.
Mm-hmm.
It is creepy when you're out of
Perfect
the mindset.
supervillain background right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you take 12-year-olds.
Oh my god, the Pope even has a lair.
But you take 12-year-olds and you drown them. You tell them you are dying. And then, okay, you're born. You're a new person. No, that's creepy. That is just weird.
Absolutely.
I don't think you should be allowed to hold your breath or hold your nose closed when you get dunked either. I think that's trying to cheat the death.
So the way my baptism
if God
was...
wants you to live through your baptism, you're going to do it with an open nose.
You're gonna, yeah.
I had to have a handkerchief in my hand, and then the pastor... Then I had to put my hands with that over my nose and mouth, and then the pastor put his hand on my forehead and dunked me under.
Well, so you had a wet handkerchief up against your face.
Yeah.
If you turn 180 degrees, you'd be waterboarded in that situation.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
I don't know. I mean, I grew up swimming all the time, and so when I was baptized when I was in high school, I just blew air out of my nose.
That's
I
how you're
didn't
supposed to
need
do it.
hold it closed. So yeah,
Or you just hold your breath.
But I always see these pictures of people getting
Yeah.
baptized. They're all holding their nose. I'm like, nope, can't be cheating that. That's
You can.
If you're not dumb enough to stay alive without holding your nose underwater, then yeah,
The whole point is just getting all the way underwater. So it doesn't matter if you're holding your breath. But anyway, so at least this is the way it works in low church Protestant denominations who practice adult baptism by full immersion. And for these to be valid, you must have reached the age of accountability, which is generally thought to be around 12. But I did notice the trend for girls starting to go down. So basically, at about the start of puberty is about when baptism would commonly happen. Because in theory, your rational faculties have developed sufficiently to be capable of moral judgment and of knowing if you are sinning or not. And it also must be voluntary. In the high church traditions, the Catholic practices are preserved, but we'll talk about infant baptism from the Catholic perspective. All humans inherit original sin from the eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden, and as a result of that original sin, you are destined for hell.
yeah. Thanks, Eve.
Alternatively,
it also seems
What a
there's an
bitch.
element of original...
that's your team, Lauren.
I know.
There also seems to be an element of original sin coming from the view that sex is inherently sinful, so everyone is literally conceived in sin.
Dope.
This is definitely one of those parts that was never sold to me. It's like I could never believe that you were just inherently sinful from.
Yeah.
Right, born.
So therefore, I never needed to be cleansed of that sin because I didn't believe I had that sin. I just look at people who think that and think, God, that's repressed.
From the second you're born, deserving of eternal damnation.
Yeah,
that's
that's
insanity.
harsh.
What
No,
better like population control though than taking the best thing in life and like making it
the
Evil.
most evil thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So then with this view, to give children a chance of going to heaven, baptism has been moved up in the timeline to when an infant is just a few months old. And since it would be incredibly dangerous to dunk an infant underwater, dangerous or lethal, the practice of sprinkling a little bit of water on the forehead with the form of a cross was developed. And Catholics, of course, use holy water for this. And the act of baptism washes away original sin and allows a chance of going to heaven.
How many babies died before they implemented that? Every rule comes from like tragedy.
So what I have a hard time figuring out is at what age do babies inherently stop holding their breath when they're underwater? Because when they're first born, they do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's several months, I know, because like the Mommy and Me swim classes, they'll start you up to like 6 months old.
Yeah.
So
So theoretically, I guess only a few babies would have died.
Yeah, true.
It just takes one.
Yeah,
It just
really.
takes one, really. One dead baby joke and you're done.
All atheists know that one good dead baby can be life-changing. So
Most churches restrict who can perform baptisms, with some kind of an ordination as a priest, pastor, or elder being required.
Just making this shit up as they go, aren't they?
Does my Universal Life Church ordinance qualify me?
as long as you have a piece of paper
Well,
that says it does.
I have a Universal Life Church monastery ordination as well.
Oh my God, fight.
And it
I was
does
thinking
include,
baptize each other.
it does include in it the ability to do baptisms.
Oh, what?
We like
it
to
does
do-
or does not?
It does. And also to ordain people.
This won't transfer well to podcast, but I mean, I think a baptism, right? Dual baptism right now is what the situation is calling
funny
for.
with that was the humanist celebrant who was officiating Lauren and my wedding had car trouble and was late, and we were in Stanley in the Sawtooths. So terrible cell signal. So couldn't get a hold of him. And I was starting to get nervous enough that I was about ready to ordain someone.
I was too busy playing in the lake to even care.
Yeah.
I was like, wait a second, he's going to be late by at least an hour. That means I can go jump in the lake. All right.
So Mormons not
Cold
having
Cold.
not having a professional clergy, so anyone with the priesthood, basically any man in good standing, can perform baptisms. And they place the age of accountability at 8 years of age. So that is where baptism takes place, and that is actually in the Book of Mormon. And they will then baptize members over and over again in their temples on behalf of the dead.
Ugh. I got named by my grandpa. He was a bishop, and that puts you on the books.
Yep.
Wasn't baptized, never went to church, never did anything, and I still got like birthday cards from the local ward. It was so creepy.
Oh,
Yeah.
Baptizing people after they're dead. Just like, that's a line, man. The very clear
I know,
line.
but it's also a bullshit line. It's like, whatever.
Well, yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Like, if you're of another faith, if
The humanist
faith
part of me says
actually-
that's a dick move.
yeah,
The atheist part of me is like, you're not hurting anybody.
yeah, big deal, whoopity doo. It's like
But,
flipping somebody off
it
behind
is-
their back. You know,
If
like
somebody lived their life as a devout Jew, and then you go back and say, "So we got to give you the chance to do the right thing." It's like, dude,
yeah.
not cool.
Now, since Mormons do believe that baptism requires faith and acceptance of it first, it doesn't actually count unless you accept it.
Oh,
right, so
in the
they
afterlife.
actually they are very benevolent in that regard too. They just think, no harm, no foul if they reject it.
oh, well, yeah.
But we got to give them. We have to at least give them the chance.
That's not that bad, honestly.
so it's evangelizing after the dead.
Because I have no problem with people praying for my salvation. Just don't get mad or pretend like you praying for my salvation is saving me. You know, like if
Just
you want to pray
sell
for my
that.
salvation, do it all day long. I'm not going to get mad about it. Just don't get mad or assume that you're doing something.
So that's why we promote the debaptisms at the Hyde Park Street Fair that the humanists do. It's
Yeah.
great. They just go with a big fan, dry you off.
Yep.
And,
I have not seen that. That's
oh my
awesome.
God,
Also
no,
seen
you
a
gotta
hair blower.
find him. Oh,
That is
man.
great.
Hair dryer. Okay, so then there is the Sikhs, who have the baptism of the sword, and it
Sounds
is
so much more badass.
based
Yeah.
on like the story of how it started. The first guru was asking people who would give their life to God, like die for God.
Was he seeking wisdom? Do you think?
So
Sorry.
finally, one man goes in, and after a while, the guru comes back out with his sword dripping in blood, and he says, "Who's next?" And another one goes in, and he comes back out, sword still dripping in blood. Brings another one in, and at the end, 5 men had gone in, and they all come out unharmed.
Where'd the
Ketchup.
blood come from?
Ketchup.
Okay, yeah.
Goat.
Probably a goat.
Oh,
You can stab things multiple times and get blood on your sword.
Yeah.
well,
Not
but
an
they all,
innuendo.
I guess they could still be alive. He could have cut their leg or something.
Nope, they were completely unharmed. Everybody marveled at how this could have possibly happened.
Wow. We just like literally listed off 4 ways that could have happened. These people not imagine.
It could have been as simple as
Don't
he
look at the
had
man
a
behind the curtain.
bucket of goat blood in the tent, and he just kept dipping it
I
in.
know I do.
That's how I would do a stunt like
As long
that.
as you refrigerate it.
So then they had to baptize everybody else. And so what they did was they took a bowl of water,
And then they slaughtered people.
and his wife
It's all a
added
trick.
some sugar to it for some reason. And each of the 5 people who he had baptized with blood took some of the water and sprinkled it on people, and then they drank the rest of the nectar. And that is how the baptisms work now. Any Sikh can officiate, and you have to bathe yourself, body and hair both, be wearing all the articles of faith, and your face and hair is sprinkled 5 times with this sweetened holy water, and then everybody being initiated drinks the remaining nectar, as they call it, from the bowl.
Man,
That
So
sounds pleasant.
that's like better than Christian baptism and Jewish baptism, right? But I was really hoping this was going to a place where you have to bathe in blood to be baptized. Like
That would have been pretty
that's
badass.
the one
Yeah.
I want to see.
If you
And-
cough up the little bits of hair in your throat and nose, is that like rejecting God, or is that?
I don't think the
Uh,
wait. No, I don't think the bowl has been used
Oh, you're not
to
drinking the bath
cleansing.
water.
No, you're not.
no.
Okay.
It's a bowl. It's just a bowl of water.
I'm sure they
of
use a
sugar
cup
water.
or something to pour it over
No,
themselves.
you don't pour. Somebody just like dips their fingers in and.
Sorry, I was thinking
Sprinkles.
Gwen Stefani like bathing in the dirty,
Oh, no.
drinking the dirty
No,
bath
you
water.
bathe in a
That's a good
stream separately prior to the start of the process.
And what's so funny is I was watching a video last night that was just put up. It was a Canadian official who's a Sikh, and he was doing his one of his meet and greet nights, which he does like on a monthly basis. And this woman came in and started yelling at him in his face in the middle of one of these meetings, telling him that he's Muslim, that he's following Sharia law, and all these people are like, he's not Muslim. In fact, one guy's like, you can talk to me, I'm Muslim, he's not Muslim. And she's like, I'm not talking to you. And it was really
wow.
hilarious that people out there still think this. If you wear a turban, you must be Muslim.
The difference between a Muslim turban and a Sikh turban is readily apparent to me. Like
yeah.
the fold,
Yep.
the crease in the front, it's
Totally
It's
easily
It's just-
recognizable when
it's
it's
like
a Sikh. I don't.
like not being able to tell the difference between a cowboy hat and a baseball hat.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference.
Yep.
Yeah, she made a complete ass of herself.
so
It was
then-
great.
Yazidis also do baptism, and they baptize children in the White Spring.
Zucchinis?
Yazidis.
Don't know about these
Tzatzikis?
guys.
These were the group of mystical Muslims that were being slaughtered by ISIS recently.
Oh, okay.
Yes. ISIS had the explicit goal of wiping out all Yazidis. So it was attempted genocide.
It's always good.
Yeah. So they have an annual festival at the start of fall. It lasts 7 days. It's called the Feast of the 7 Days. And
That's one hell of a party.
they bring children, and throughout the festival, children get baptized in the White Spring, as it is called, in the place everybody pilgrimages to. And they also take the silk cloth that normally covers the tombs of the 7 angels in their sanctuary, and they rebaptize it in the spring every year as well.
No.
They're in the desert. Deserts tend to be dusty. It makes sense that you'd wash the silk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
This should be coming up too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right
here
around the corner.
anytime. All right, it is time for a break. Atheist Nomads is proudly brought to you by Archway Hosting. Check out their low-price, full-featured hosting solutions at archwayhosting.com. That's ARCHWAY hosting.com. We're also brought to you by patrons just like you. But if you want to become a patron, consider donating to help with the hurricanes for now. Yeah, we'll still be here later. We got some feedback from Chris on Facebook. In your last podcast, you stated that the USA has more tornadoes than the rest of the world. That is not strictly true, as the UK is the tornado capital of the world with more tornadoes per area than any other country. Although they're nothing like as devastating as those in the USA. Okay, what I said that was wrong is that the U.S. gets more tornadoes than the rest of the world combined. That is not true. The U.S. does get more tornadoes than any other country. And Chris, nice try, was saying the U.K. has more per area is a ridiculous comparison considering that the U.K. is the size of Oregon, one of the 50 states.
But honestly, this still blew me away because I never thought of England, Britain, UK getting tornadoes, right?
Yeah. Turns out, like, all of Europe is a tornado hotspot.
That's so weird.
So
You
is
never hear about
Australia,
it,
New
you don't-
Zealand,
yeah.
South Africa, Bangladesh.
I mean,
China.
obviously, weather is weather, and it's going to happen all over the world in different ways, but that seems so quintessentially American to me.
Well, I always thought tornadoes were attracted to trailer parks, and I just assumed they didn't have that many trailer
Yeah.
parks over there.
Okay.
So
Yeah. No, if you took the equivalent size area of the UK out of the lower Midwest, we would have the UK completely sucked up into the
Tornadoed?
tornadoed.
yeah,
And that's not a good thing. That's not something you want to win the lottery on.
Yeah.
You don't want to win the tornado lottery. That is bad.
Well,
But
I don't know.
yeah.
America, I mean,
We'll
we
leave
got
that
to
to
be number
Oklahoma.
one at something.
Those are like the original gentrifiers, like tearing up the trailer parks.
Except for it totally falls flat because they only have enough money to build more trailer parks after the trailer parks get ripped up.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's a never-ending
just because
cycle.
That's all
nothing's perfect.
that insurance companies give you, unless they consider it an act of God. Which brings us to the first news story.
Fantasy land. Oh,
Hurricanes, tornadoes, all of that. Yeah, insurance says act of God. Nope, Ken Ham disagrees. He blames it on... and wants to make sure everybody is sure that it's not God's fault.
it's gayness, right?
He sent a tweet saying, devastating hurricanes reminder we live in a fallen, groaning world as a result of our sin against the holy God. It's our fault, not God's fault.
It's so ridiculous.
It's been going on forever.
Have you-
Literally forever.
Have you guys seen the clip of Growing Pains? That guy. Why can't I think of his name? Ray Comfort and him do the stuff together.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't think of his
Know
name
who you're
off the top
talking
of my
about.
head. Cameron. Kirk Cameron.
Yeah.
Kirk Cameron.
Have you seen the clip of him at the Florida airport sitting there doing the selfie filming with the storm in the background, talking about how it's God trying to
Basically
inspire us to live
proselytizing.
a humble living in His presence, and it's like, oh my God, man, how deluded can you be?
You kind of just want them to just like, go prove us right. You're a godly man. Just
Yeah.
walk
Yeah.
out there.
Oh,
Just
man.
walk and see what happens.
Yeah.
No logic.
That's just...
No, it is logic. Based on their logic,
Flawed
it's
logic.
very
Yeah,
logical. They
Yes.
really do think that this is the way it is.
Not reasonable.
Yes.
Now, in response to Ken Ham's claim, no, they aren't God's fault because there is no God. They are caused by wind currents blowing from
Temperatures.
different places. There is an element of human fault, like we discussed earlier, because we have heated up the earth in recent years. Most of that increased heat has gone to the oceans, so we are getting stronger storms.
Makes sense.
But he's not telling people to not drive gas guzzlers or carpool or anything like that.
Well, the whole idea of environmental disaster means nothing to most evangelicals because they believe in their lifetime or the lifetime of their children, grandchildren, that
Yep.
existence is going to come to an end in entirety. So, or not, but
many
this
people
existence, corporeal
just
existence.
in the past 2 weeks. This is it. This is the end of times. It's like you do realize that this is only affecting like 1% of North America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really not the end of times.
And yeah,
It wasn't last year.
Lots
It
of
wasn't the year before that.
lots of the U.S. is fucked right now. A lot of Mexico is fucked right now. And this is going to continue happening, and it's going to continue to get worse. And we need to do something about it.
I would contend on average, it's still far worse in Africa on any day of the week in northern and central Africa. So yeah, it's not as bad as it sucks.
Yep.
And I don't mean to diminish the suffering of the people that are in the path of these tragedies, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not the end of the world.
Yeah. On Friday, Donald Trump tweeted, "Churches in Texas should be entitled to reimbursement from FEMA relief funds for helping victims of Hurricane Harvey, just like others." This suggests that he is aware of, but does not understand, the lawsuit filed last Monday by 3 churches who want FEMA aid to repair and rebuild their churches, claiming they are being discriminated against because of their religious status.
Yes, they
All
are.
of that sucks.
Yeah.
So they're not paying anything. They're not paying any taxes into the system, but they want the benefits of the system.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah. No, that sucks. That's a crock of shit.
I mean, they get that anyway. in a large part.
They do get
but not in this case.
They get the podium to stand on from which to shout their political views that they're not entitled to by tax code, and so why not just give them the, just seal the deal and let them have whatever they want.
So you've got that going on. You've got the recent Supreme Court ruling granting playground resurfacing to a church's playground, and where the biggest thing that changed is the longstanding tradition that government money does not go to churches is not absolute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what Trump mentioned, it does seem relatively reasonable that if churches are spending money on giving out bottled water, if all they are doing is handing out bottled water and there is no proselytizing going on, I don't have a big issue with that, other than the fact that
that's because you're a humanist.
Where do you draw the line with where they're allowed? What are they allowed to say while they are using government funds to distribute?
I just can't. I can't.
Well, and how do you monitor it to make sure they're not abusing?
Yeah, and
right.
I can't get over Joel Osteen's whole thing. Finally, letting people into his mega church and then passing the collection plate around, while actively proselytizing everybody in the church
and lying about the reason why they didn't open the church initially.
I mean, it's like don't reward these people. Their church members will come together and support the church after. It's sometimes foregoing their own well-being after a natural disaster. They don't need government money.
Well, and at this point, I mean, to think that Joel Osteen might have any shame is atrocious, because his whole
shame, Cersei, shame.
Well, his whole thing is structured. His sermons are structured to promote his books.
Yeah,
like his whole church is centered around his books more than it is the Bible. Like, I mean, the man just is an obvious charlatan.
Oh yeah,
but that tends to overshadow the small neighborhood churches that were the first to open up. We're the first to have beds for people, giving water
things without any thought of
while I believe that those places should be rewarded, not by the government, but by the people
by the community,
community that they helped.
Yep,
I fully agree.
My problem with that is I'm not going to make this point well, but, they're like, this hurricane is God, showing us we need to be humble, and this is God's plan, and this is God's, method that he's devised for us to be better people. And part of God's plan is for the government to rebuild their church. Like, they're on one hand, they're using the same logic to just put their foot in their mouth so hard.
Yeah. On one hand, this is God's deal telling us what to do, and on the other hand, we need you to help rebuild God's church.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
All right. Rush Limbaugh now.
Oh man,
love this guy.
It just keeps getting better and better.
I've got to state here too. I listened on a daily basis to Rush Limbaugh for about 5 years. So
I did it growing up. I'd be playing in my sandbox when my dad was listening to Rush.
I know that taste of vomit in the back of my throat very well.
From ham to pig. Let's go.
Yeah. So last Tuesday, Rush Limbaugh was certain that Hurricane Irma would turn it out into the Atlantic, and that projections that it would hit Florida was a liberal hoax.
Where did he come up with
eclipse?
this?
Well, he came up with this from the conservative playbook of fear-mongering at any cost. At any cost.
And then
even
blame everybody else for fear-mongering.
Well, and okay, as a former avid Rush listener, I can tell you too. So he is sitting here saying, oh, this is a liberal conspiracy, global warming conspiracy, it's a hoax, blah, blah, whatever. At the same time, while he's planning his evacuation, and I haven't listened to his shows recently, but I'd almost guarantee you that he's blaming the nanny state's insistence on him evacuating for leaving. I'd almost guarantee you that he's going to say that he wouldn't have done it except the government was forcing him to do it.
So what he has said so far, on Tuesday, it was... So there's a desire to advance this climate change agenda, and hurricanes are one of the fastest and best ways to do it. You can accomplish a lot just by creating fear and panic. You don't need a hurricane to hit anywhere. All you need is to create the fear and panic accompanied by talk that climate change is causing hurricanes to become more frequent and bigger and more dangerous. And you create the panic. and its mission accomplished, agenda advanced.
It's insane the way they can flip these things. He's taking something that you should have a very natural and healthy fear and aversion to, and turning that into a political agenda. Thing to strike fear into people that they're being lied to about it.
He lives in South Florida.
Yeah.
He should be scared of hurricanes and concerned about them getting bigger and stronger. This isn't
the first hurricane that his property has taken multiple millions of dollars of damage from either. You know,
I'm sure he's well insured.
Oh, yeah.
So then Thursday, he said, the views expressed by the host of this program are documented to be almost always right, 99.8% of the time.
That's his opening tagline for the show.
There's a reason for this because we engage in a relentless and unstoppable pursuit of the truth, and we find and proclaim it, and that happens to drive people crazy. And then he announced that he was evacuating because the authorities wouldn't let him do the show on Friday.
So you called it.
It's the nanny state's fault, of course. Yeah. The guy has a formula. There's a formula.
And what's really sad is that these people who aren't leaving, I have kind of a pretentiousness about it, where it's like, oh, you people are just silly for staying. If there's obviously a hurricane coming down on you, why are you staying in your little hovels? Until I read the article that showed that 75% of the people that are staying are on some form of disability.
Oh,
they literally cannot get into a car and drive away,
and leave,
or can't afford to,
Don't
have a caretaker or a family member that can.
Those are the people that they're not leaving; they're being left behind.
Right.
And I'm sorry.
And they're just a few people who are just shooting their guns into Irma and using pallets to board up their houses. They're just making it worse.
Medicare fraudster and Florida Governor Rick Scott. He was even going out and telling people not to shoot into the storm because that's stupid.
Even a thing.
It is strong enough to blow
around
bullets.
Why?
What?
Yeah,
it's gonna just whip that bullet right back around at some point.
You're just
you might kill your neighbor 10 miles away.
Oh, God. That's awesome.
I think at some point, probably late last night, the ability to leave most of Florida went away for a lot of people, though.
Completely.
Just not being able to get gas, not even be able to get boards for their windows. Like
the people who could leave
tapped.
have laughed.
If you didn't leave by Friday morning, you wouldn't be able to get through traffic to get to Georgia. And just stay ahead of the storm.
By landfall.
Not even escape the storm, but stay ahead of the storm.
Inversely, if you're a Cuban kid riding a door to America, you're making great time.
Now, okay, we're done with hurricane talk. Now we're going to move on to other news.
Or it can't.
A new study into childhood vaccinations, looking specifically at data collected on incoming kindergarten students in California, has found that since banning personal belief exemptions, medical exemptions have tripled.
The dumb will find a way.
Now, part of why this would be is that the bill allowed for laxer standards on medical exemptions, including allowing for family history to be taken into account.
What does that mean?
My dad is allergic to eggs. Therefore, I shouldn't have to get vaccines because I could also be allergic to eggs.
And do they use proteins from egg or something?
Yes, they do.
And a lot of them, yeah.
All right.
In some. The flu shot in particular is grown in a chicken egg.
Well, and it is sort of a dark underpinning of that the medical exemptions are going up. But when you look at the actual numbers of exemptions overall, they dropped by more than 50% too.
Yes.
So that's actually really encouraging.
Right. So it did definitely drop that. Now, allowing... And it is also possible that some of these families before may have opted for personal belief exemptions instead of going through the rigorous process of getting the medical exemption.
Which I can totally understand.
Yeah.
But...
It was lazy and screwed up the numbers, but I can understand.
Looks a lot more like bullshit. The total exemption rate has dropped from 2.54% to 1.06%, but this hasn't been uniform across the state. And the areas regional? That previously had the highest rates of personal belief exemptions have seen the largest increase in medical exemptions.
So Orange County, probably.
Yeah.
And all you can do is blame the doctors. I cannot believe doctors are writing... They'd have to write notes or something.
All you have to go to is a, quote, doctor
chiropractor, probably.
I hope chiropractors can't, but there are doctors who are MDs who do naturopathy as well. Thinking of a few
You can get
here in the valley.
You can get a disabled exemption from a chiropractor, so I would think that you could get an exemption
They shouldn't be able to do anything on vaccines because they don't treat anything and should not be treating anything
that would
related.
deal with the vaccine. Okay, yeah, because you could have a physical ailment that is applicable to the functional part of chiropractic. Chiropractics, however.
It's a slippery slide, though.
Yeah. But there's just enough doctors that are MD NPs, or not NP, that's nurse practitioner. ND, doctor of naturopathy. MD NDs that will they buy into all the same bullshit. In the DO.
And they're making bank on these people.
Yeah. You look at the DO spectrum, doctor of osteopathy. Most of them are legitimate doctors who just happen to know more about alternative medicine than most. Some, though, do buy into a lot of the alternative medicine, and I wouldn't be surprised if a decent amount of them are a lot happier to write these exemptions. It's not hard to find, and there are MDs who buy into the bullshit, too. Just straight up regular old MDs that are insane.
Well, and I don't know how much he classifies as a doctor nowadays, but a guy with medical training like Dr. Oz, who just buys into all this spiritual mumbo jumbo.
Goop.
Yeah,
Andrew Wakefield is an MD.
Doctors are not. Ben Carson, I mean, is a neurosurgeon, and the man believes some crazy stuff. So doctors are not immune to illogical or unreasonable beliefs.
I would also be concerned if a neurosurgeon is writing any of these exemptions, because a neurosurgeon is a brain mechanic.
Right.
Literally,
you need more of like a pathologist, maybe?
Wow, that's oversimplification if I've ever heard one, says the person who loves neuroscience.
The reason why I point this out is the people who have questioned how could one of the world's greatest neurosurgeons be so insane is you don't have to understand or agree with evolution or even germ theory to be an amazing neurosurgeon. You have to know exactly how everything in the brain works, the exact mapping of the brain, and have absolute manual dexterity.
It's a more mechanical skill set than...
Yeah. You have to have a perfect map of what the brain is and how everything works, and a absolutely no shake at all. He had that skill set. And is a genius, but he's also insane.
Did you have the story about the Boise woman?
It never made it into the show, but we can talk about that now.
Just a quick little thing. Here in the West Ada County School District, there was a woman who all you have to do is sign a form that says that you have a personal vendetta against vaccines, and your kid can go to school. She didn't agree with some of the things that she was being forced to say by signing this agreement. Like, who actually reads the damn form? This woman did. So she wrote on the back of it the reasons why she doesn't believe in vaccines, and then submitted that. Well, the school district's like, that's not really how this is supposed to work. Your kid can't go to school. She fought it. She's won.
Oh, my. So any reason you want to give now?
As long as you write it on the back. Not only that, but she demands a public apology for making her go through all of that effort.
I'm sorry, lady.
There.
Yeah, there you go.
You got it.
Where you got it from Ryan today.
Middle fingers up.
Somebody
I'm sorry,
make sure
lady.
No, I'm just sorry that's her life. Like that's the brain she's working with.
Or were you pretending you were her and stating a fact? I'm sorry, lady.
Yeah,
she's a sorry lady.
She is.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, the school district hasn't done an apology yet. They did decide that the way she read the rules, they can kind of see where she nitpicked it. They're like, okay, we'll do this from now on. But it's like, all you had to do was sign a form.
The fact that dollars are being spent to flesh out the reality of these situations is very upsetting.
This went into court, and it was like, this is ridiculous, waste of time.
Well,
she should be shamed.
The one thing I can grant some credit to is the fact that the courts handled this quickly. I disagree with their decision.
But they did
you
handle
choose
it your
quickly.
battles. And when it comes to angry parents, sometimes you just got to wash your hands and walk away.
Yeah.
In Idaho, there are two things that will piss off more people than anything else, and that is screwing with parental rights or religious freedom.
And the parental rights group, I don't remember the name of the group, but they were the ones that were really lobbying to get this.
And by parental rights, we're talking anti-vax. Specifically, they're about parental rights to not vaccinate your children.
I feel pretty confident in saying that in Idaho, you could get a law passed saying that you can beat your kid to death if you want, as long as you framed it under the deal of you can't let these liberals tell you how to raise your kids.
Yep.
Like,
you could.
Absolutely. And in fact, apparently this parental rights group is planning on introducing legislation this next year.
Fantastic.
To make the rules even more lax than what they are already, which is ridiculous because Idaho already has the most relaxed laws on this in the freaking country.
Yeah.
It's like, what more do you want besides us actually going out and murdering your kids?
Nazis and letting your kids die for religious reasons. That's what we're and potatoes. That's yay.
Yay, Idaho.
Thanks, world, for,
right.
for focusing on those.
Wow. Okay, so let's move to a national one, and not about Idaho. The Department of Justice has filed a brief on behalf of Baker Jack Phillips, who violated the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act by refusing to make a cake for a gay couple's reception.
Why is this still a thing?
You literally took that out of my brain.
This is a case dating back to 2012.
Oh, that's why, because it is
Time
still
warp.
the same thing.
It takes 5-6 years for a case to get to the Supreme Court. This is finally there.
This is one I'm really torn on, because on one hand, like, I don't really feel like cake baking is an essential service where you can tell somebody they can't refuse service, you know? But I also feel like if the stated reason is because of something that is considered discrimination, you know, like a federally protected deal, if you state that reason, then yes, absolutely, like you're in the wrong. But like me personally as a woodworker, if some Christian comes into my shop and wants me to make a bunch of whatever, let's say cutting boards with crosses in them, I'm going to say unequivocally no. Like, it just, I don't want their money. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to promote that whole concept. And I feel like trying to force somebody who is in a non-essential service to do something that they don't want to do is a real dangerous thing to do.
Okay, so first off, the brief has the line, forcing Phillips to create expression for and participate in a ceremony that violates his sincerely held religious beliefs, violates his First Amendment rights. Basically, the argument you're trying to make. Where I would counter that is if you made cutting boards with Star of David, with Sikh symbols, with Hindu symbols,
and then
you refuse crosses,
yes,
you are a discriminatory asshole.
I could get on board with that.
If you refuse to make anything with religious imagery in it, it's a consistent standard that I think would have an easier time passing scrutiny. And if you already have a track record of being selective with what tasks you take, because you do commissioned work.
Yes. People
commission
you to make something, you make it. That's a little different than a shop open to the public where people come in and they buy stuff.
That wasn't the case in this. This was a commissioned piece. Wedding cakes are commissioned. They're not, you walk in and buy a wedding cake. You walk in and you say, I want this kind of cake. I want these toppings. I want this frosting. I want these decorations. That's a commissioned piece from a baker's point of view.
Okay.
Now, if they walked in and just got a half sheet cake that said happy birthday on it and then complained, that's a little... Yeah.
I take the issue with it in the same terms of if you did all religious images except for crosses, if you bake cakes and you put names on them, but you won't put two men's name on it, I don't see how the drawing of the name is art.
That's a point.
Yeah.
I just get so hung up on and it might be naive of me, but I just get so hung up on why the gay couple wants to give their money to this business, why it matters, like why, even if it's the best cake in town,
maybe they're in an area where it's the only person who can do custom wedding cakes, something like that, like but otherwise, if you know you're in an area where you have an LGBTQ friendly baker and you would go to this guy just to spite or just to start a lawsuit or something like that, then that to me is as
which is
petty
what I
as,
suspected
as
this was
opposite.
at first. Was I thought that because that's happened where people have gone into bakers and say, "I want you to make me a cake with."
This was before that.
I love to fuck asses and stuff. It's like,
did they get married? Like, we're 5 years in the future.
I actually
Did
got
they,
a cake like that made.
They got married in Massachusetts.
they did get
off
married,
subject.
and they did have a cake.
And they got married in Massachusetts, and they were trying to get a cake for the reception in Colorado with their friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they found a place to get a cake. I just know this guy didn't. They filed a complaint that they're discriminated against, and so far they've been winning everything.
and then the Supreme Court has to step in, and
We don't know what they're going to do yet.
It'll be interesting.
I get that it's wrong. It just seems silly to me that it would go to this
arbitrary.
I really hope that this guy's getting a lot of social media attention and that people with any sort of humanistic tendencies will avoid giving
that happened in
their
Portland.
money to him.
That happened in Portland, where this Christian cake baker went on this tirade and got a bunch of money from a bunch of Christians to bail her out after she went out of business because she refused to bake a cake for a lesbian couple.
That's the one I'm more familiar with than the Denver.
But that one, they didn't file a complaint with the state. They went on social media, and people stopped doing business with her. The free market put her out of business.
this gay couple, if they posted this to social media at all, they probably got tons of free cake.
But
Right? Yeah.
For people all over the country saying, "I'm sorry you're going through this. Here's a cake."
Where the problem comes in with stuff like this, and the civil rights laws that are in place for businesses of public accommodation, and that is the big difference, is do you have a sign on the street and you accept people from the public walking into your store? Mm-hmm. That is where it becomes a big deal. Because in the 1960s and before, if you were black, you couldn't go into most stores in the South.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense to me right there. Like, yeah, if you are set up in a public area where you are obviously open to the public, people can just come in, and then you discriminate against protected class. I do believe that would.
Well, it's like somebody was saying, "Well, I work for this restaurant, and we have a sign up that says we reserve the right to refuse service to anybody for any reason." Well, what makes us different from that? And somebody had to point out those became very popular, those particular signs, because they're not allowed to say no blacks anymore.
Yeah.
So they put those up, and they've stuck around for decades.
And those signs mean nothing.
And they
don't reserve shit.
No, you can't. Yeah, but if it is any form of protected class, whether you're a pregnant woman or different race or sexual orientation or a furry, I don't even know.
You can throw a...
Are furries protected?
No.
They should be.
Environmentally?
And they are not. And
we won't go off on that.
LGBT community isn't in most of the country.
Okay.
Like, they aren't protected in Idaho. But the reason why this is a big deal, and it sucks that we're having to go through this again, because our country just went through this in the 1960s with interracial marriage. And there were cake bakers who it violated their sincerely held religious beliefs to take part in an interracial marriage by baking a cake. And that issue has died like it needed to.
Yeah.
And it's back, and it needs to die as well, because if you're a gay couple in Salmon, Idaho, and people are allowed to discriminate, you might have to drive to Boise to get a cake. And if you don't have a lot of money, you might not be able to do that, and you might not have a wedding cake.
Yeah.
Or you're stuck with going to Albertsons for a wedding cake.
And it's just amazing that people can't see the direct comparison
between the race and
interracial marriage
oh my gosh,
and
right?
LGBT. It's insane, you know. But it's a bunch of people who have convinced themselves or been convinced by their religious community, for the most part, that homosexuality is not natural. So,
well, there's that, and they have also convinced themselves that it's not discrimination because they think everyone is free to marry somebody of the opposite sex. So everybody's being treated the same.
Right.
Yeah.
We're just trying to take that one more step.
Right. Everybody else looks at it as a question of being free to marry the person you love, the person you choose to marry.
They look at it as we're trying to give people extra rights to go beyond.
And it's a lack of the foresight to be able to look in the future and see where this is an eradicated issue and it is such nonsense. And everyone in the future looks back and says, "Oh, this group are bigots." You know,
well,
it's just like every issue that's been resolved before. People don't see that they're on the wrong side until it's.
Anytime I get into a discussion with somebody about this and they're on the anti-LGBTQ side, I'd say the same thing. You are on the side of people who were against the suffragette movement. You are on the side of the people who are against the civil rights movement. Like that is
what
where you will stand in history.
when you actually come across a person who still is like that.
Yeah.
And then your argument kind of falls flat. And you're like, oh, you're just you're just an asshole.
You're proud of it.
Yeah.
I've given that argument to people and they've just been like, yeah, I kind of realize that, but still, like, God just doesn't want gay people to get married.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm done with you.
Just admit that it upsets you, that you aren't comfortable with it, you know?
All right, now let's talk about a wedding that we're all going to be uncomfortable with. Jorge Federico Villarreal is an evangelical pastor in Mexico City who just married a 12-year-old girl because God ordered him to do so. He has previously married and divorced 3 other women, all because God tells him to. As to why a 12-year-old, he said, God has chosen a young girl to be my wife. God, why her? And today, talking to him in the morning, he made me see that the woman that he chose for me is of young age and is given her to me so I can sanctify her, to edify, so that she doesn't contaminate me like the others that did.
Oh.
So he wanted a guaranteed virgin and somebody he can manipulate and control.
Yep.
Which is why most people marry 12-year-olds.
Yep. Oh, but hey, he promised he's not going to consummate the marriage till she's 18. Wink, wink, nudge,
18?
nudge.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
He'll be lucky to last a week.
18 minutes.
God. Asshole.
Disgusting.
I don't know if he's going to go right for the asshole. That's speculation.
Right, because that doesn't count. That doesn't count.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so sad.
It is, and what's sad is how underreported underage marriage like that is too.
It hit this summer when was it New Jersey that refused to pass a law banning underage marriage?
New Jersey, and I think
and
Missouri was last year.
Why wouldn't you ban it?
Because with parental consent in most states, I think it's like 12 or 13, right?
Yeah,
like
what is underage marriage? Because it federally, the age of consent got pushed up, which brought a couple states to like 16.
Well, and that's sexual consent. That's not for marriage.
The consent laws all have an exemption for if you're married. Because if you're married, you're automatically an emancipated minor, and those consent laws only apply for outside of marriage.
Yeah, so you can actually get married as a loop around.
Yeah.
That kind of touches on, is marriage just consent for everything? Can you rape your wife? It's like
in some states.
In some states.
Yes. We did a story a couple months ago. North Carolina, under current North Carolina law, yes, you can rape your wife. Under North Carolina law, as it stands, it is impossible to rape your wife.
Yeah, you
that
cannot
is not a thing.
because it's not a thing.
Because you're married, and you're entitled to that.
So
Jesus.
this is still a thing, and
owning women,
owning children, owning girls is still a thing, and it's like, wow. Let's get back on our high horse and talk about all the advancements we've made.
Okay, like a Turkish security guard who was riding the bus when he saw a 23-year-old nurse. And the way he describes the incident, she wore shorts and was sitting in an obscene way with her legs sideways. She was staring at me with an obtrusive look. I lost myself in an instant. I thought she disregarded the values of our country and society, and she did not show respect for herself and the people around her with her clothing style. My spiritual side took over, so I kicked her in the face.
Yeah, well,
I did that once when I was in kindergarten.
He told the court, and I kicked her in the face.
Well, what would you do? I mean, that was my first reaction while I was sitting here listening to this. Is kick that bitch in the face, dude.
Now, he was also heard shouting that women who wear shorts don't deserve to live, and that this woman doesn't deserve to live. So I would assume he was kicking her in the face with the intent to kill.
if it wasn't for with the intent to kill, there is definitely if you're yelling that the intimidation factor is quadrupled, and you are
while actively kicking her in the face.
Is he wearing shoes?
Probably.
Sounds like assault with a deadly weapon.
So 3 men eventually stopped him. Otherwise, he probably would have killed her.
God damn.
And he has been sentenced now to 3 years and 10 months in prison for preventing the practice of freedom of faith, thought, and opinion, and deliberately causing injury.
Now, I like that first rule.
Do you read that again?
Preventing the practice of freedom of faith, thought, and opinion.
That is...
that's not a universal law.
That is a felony.
Yeah.
And this is Turkey or Portland?
Turkey.
Okay.
That is incredibly progressive for a Middle Eastern country. That's...
Turkey...
Well, I guess they're...
Until recently was the only secular Muslim majority country.
Yeah, they were pretty cool until they went crazy.
It comes and goes there. It's kind of a...
Comes and goes.
That is a great law. That's how you protect religious freedom, is not by allowing people to do whatever they want in the name of their religion, but by making it so that nobody can force you to do something in the name of their religion. I mean, how does that not make perfect sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, just losing it on a bus and attacking a woman because she was wearing shorts. I think what pissed him off was that she must have eyeballed him. Like, she must have known that this was pissing him off. She must have, made eye contact with him and just set him off. That guy needs to be removed from society because, holy crap.
I would have gone with...
Just because somebody gives you the stink eye doesn't mean...
Yeah, especially with the fact that witnesses reported on him saying, you deserve to die, while kicking her in the face. He should have been charged with attempted murder.
Yeah.
All for having short pants on. That's just, I don't even
obviously,
understand.
If she's
in a
wearing
really
shorts,
hot area.
Obviously, if she's wearing shorts, she would have been also probably in a t-shirt
or something.
I would assume a t-shirt,
tank top, something like that.
With her hair uncovered.
Was she Turkish?
Yeah.
It was a Turkish woman.
Yep.
And it's these little stories that it always makes me laugh when people say not all... I mean, I know that I'm surrounded by men, but when they say hashtag not all men, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's not all men. It's men like that ruin it for everybody else.
And enough of them. And that might be a more extreme version, but you can't tell me that most people, especially like more conservative-minded people, that they don't have these really possessive and entitled behaviors with women just in general.
And you never know who you're going to set off at any moment.
I'm 6'2", 215. I know I can be very intimidating. If I find myself in a situation where, due to unfortunate coincidence, I might be making a woman uncomfortable, I have, over recent years, become very aware of that. And it sucks that men like this asshole have ruined it for men like me.
Any kind of progress you've made in not being intimidating to women is just shattered by news of somebody attacking a woman unprovoked.
Walking down a dark street,
and this was unprovoked.
A woman 10 feet in front of me, my car is just a block down. I'm not following her, we just happen to be going the same direction. I intentionally slow down to make sure it doesn't appear that I am trying to gain on her.
Yeah. Well,
that sucks.
Speaking as a single man and going out, everybody else here is married jerks. But
fuck you.
You almost can't. Because of asshole entitled men, you almost can't go out and try and meet a woman in a public forum anymore because it almost always comes off as creepy, or there's so many guys that go out there and catcall and stuff like that, or like you go out to the bar or something like that, and it's almost just always assumed that you're a dog out there, doing whatever. And there are guys who aren't focused on that, but there's more guys who are, and I think it's the same deal with this.
So you're screwed if you try to do a private event, because no woman's going to go to dinner alone with some guy that she's never met, or at least she shouldn't. It's really hard to do it in public because there's all those people that are heckling that kind of ruin it.
Well, or just being out in a public setting and meeting someone new at that point, It's almost impossible to strike up a sincere conversation with a woman because most men are just trying to
it's like answering a Craigslist ad where you agree to meet in a Walmart parking lot where it's well lit and there's lots of people around.
Yeah, right. I know. Like,
provide your own rape whistle.
Bring two of your friends to ensure your safety.
All right. The Hualong Hui Autonomous County in China I think I did all right with the pronunciation, kept getting noise complaints about the nighttime calls to prayer. And they responded by removing loudspeakers from more than 300 mosques.
Wow.
All in 3 days.
100% on board with this. Not for any other reason other than if you are playing super ass loud shit in the middle of the night, we have an issue big time.
Now,
You dealt with this, didn't you?
I have experienced this firsthand and I have to call bullshit. Because I dealt with it when I was in Jordan. I was there for 6 weeks. I heard there was calls to prayer going on every night. When I had severe jet lag and I couldn't sleep, it was really annoying. Then I got used to it. And then I slept right through it.
Yeah, it became like cars.
Not
passing
everybody
down the
can
street in
do
the
that,
middle of the night.
though.
Right.
And honestly, I think if you are participating in a religion that has prayers in the middle of the night, you got your own little alarm set for that. You don't need the church to be blasted it across the entire state.
Oh.
Well, and if you can do it for prayer in the middle of the night, why can't you do it for band practice at any time you want to? You know, I mean, if you can break a noise violation,
Where
for
it gets
one reason.
really bad is most
Says
of
the
them
guy in a band.
most of them-
that was the case.
most of them are playing the same call to prayer over and over, the same voice, singing the call the same, and they have them overloaded and out
Can't
of sync.
understand what they're saying anyway.
So the 3 a.m. Call to prayer, the way I remember it going, you get one at 2:40, and then there's one at 2:45, and then there's one at 2:53, and then there's one that starts at 2:53:01, and then there's one that starts at 2:53:05, and they're just out of sync. And then
Singing in rounds.
at 3:05, you get 3 more that start up, all within about 2 seconds, but just slightly off.
So yeah, I
man.
totally get it.
Just a
So
cacophony
it's a
of awful.
technological problem. Like they need you to go over there and work out some of the kinks in their AV.
They need to all be actually
Maybe add a
timed.
nice bass line to it and
Just wait for the drop. Okay, now it's cool.
drop the beat.
Or at least use
Rocco gets it.
Rocco does. Come here.
a time server. The technology is
Just
there.
sync it to your iPhone. Like it's
There you go.
Something.
Oh, everybody's iPhones go off at the same time.
Actually, that's the solution. But this is one of the least offensive violations of human rights I've ever heard of in China. Like,
Yeah, right. Like in this
Good
year
point.
in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, they have banned anyone under the age of 18 from entering a mosque. They have banned the burqa completely, and they have banned any Muslim-looking beards.
Wow.
What on earth is a Muslim-looking beard?
Not a huge fan of
Ragged?
Islam, but
If
that's
you are in
unacceptable.
Unkempt?
an autonomous region that is an autonomous region because of an ethnically distinct majority Muslim population, and you look like you might be Muslim, you're in public,
Bullshit.
you're violating the law.
That is awful.
That's insanity. Yeah. That's
So you
that's
put this in that
unacceptable.
context, and it seems uglier.
Or the Rohingya out of Myanmar that are literally being bombed out of their homes and burned out of their communities.
Yeah.
That's going on right now, too. It's like, oh, Jesus. Okay, you know what? You guys
Yeah,
can have your little alarm.
In that context, it is certainly a little more sinister. You know, just because freedom of expression, I think, is so important. As long as you're not violating someone else's ability to operate as a free agent.
Right.
but
Yeah.
there is a compromise and a solution. You know, you just give everyone a little Buffalo Wild Wings coaster that goes off and vibrates when it's time to pray.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Dude, and then you panic. It's like, how long do I actually have on this? Do I
Well,
30 seconds or 2 minutes? I
by
mean,
this time in China, everybody's got a knockoff iPhone.
Mhm.
They
Yep.
can all run an app that does the
They
call
shoot
to
at
prayer.
birth now, right?
yeah, actually, I'm pretty sure that is an app.
Yeah.
There is an app called Call to
Right.
Prayer, and it buzzes.
On an atomic timer. Like,
Yeah.
perfect. There you go.
All right. So PRRI has released their findings from the 2016 American Values Atlas. This is the largest ever survey of religious identity in the U.S. with a sample size of 101,000. Of note from their findings, white Christians are now a minority in both the U.S. as a whole and in a majority of states. White evangelicals, mainline Protestants, and white Catholics are all in decline. All non-Christian religions still only make up about 6% of the population. 27% of the unaffiliated identify as atheist and agnostic. 58% just identify as secular, in other words, not religious. and only 16% of the unaffiliated identify as religious. And in 20 states, the unaffiliated are now the single largest religious group.
That's awesome. Yay, I like being on a winning team.
Idaho is not one of those states, but
no, it is not. I think that's great, and I think we're only going to continue to see that with as long as we continue to have free access to information.
Yeah,
there's a lot of confusing stuff out there, but I think people generally are able to weed out the garbage.
Well, what's funny is the 30 under 30 that they were talking about, 7-8 years ago. Most of those people are now in their 30s, at least a lot of them. 29% of Americans under 30 are religiously unaffiliated. Or it's not under 30, between 30 and 40. 38% between 18 and 30.
And you're just going to see that number rise because you have parents that are instilling logical faculties into their children.
And you look at the age distribution on this. All of the white Christian groups, the age distribution is old.
Yeah.
They are dying. Non-Christian religions and unaffiliated, you look at the age distribution, and we're just growing.
I personally believe that it's mostly due to access to information, that the internet is a big part in this, just because people can see how the other half lives, and realize that, oh my goodness, all this stuff that I grew up hearing about how evil gay people are, oh, nope, they're just like me, except they do stuff with the same parts that they have.
It all started growing.
They do the stuff you only do on Wednesdays.
Yeah, they do the stuff that I wish I could clone myself to do with my... Never mind. All right, we're getting into...
The rapid climb in the number of unaffiliated started in 2005. There's a lot of people who like to credit the Four Horsemen. No, it's the internet. It's social media.
Yep.
Access to broadband.
It's also giving a weird push, but maybe a final push to, that's where like the alt-right and the radical conservatives are born out of too, is that same
it's their death
network.
It's the death pangs of that side, I think, their last struggles to try and keep their relevance.
Yeah, and it certainly is making them seem maybe quite a bit more relevant than they actually are too, just because you get the you get the stories blown out of proportion.
You get the sensationalism from the media. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, our final story is a local one. This year, Boise Parks and Recreation has worked with the Interfaith Sanctuary on a pilot program to put homeless people to work. The initial program was 1 month long and only called for one team. By the end of the season, they had 2 teams. They had extended work hours and added more than 10 people to the program. Each employee is given a bank account with direct deposit and is assigned a case manager to help with getting ID and managing funds, and they were paid $9.25 per hour. One person in this program had been unemployed for 10 years, homeless for, I think, 7, and living at the Interfaith Sanctuary for the last year and a half. He has a home now.
That's incredible.
I think one of the fundamental problems with homelessness and a lot of things is that there's no money in it. Nobody with money is going to give up money to the humanitarian effort is stifled by the fact that it doesn't generate money.
Yeah.
So anytime you can turn the table on that and you can help people while also generating revenue and making a self-supporting system, I think is awesome. And that's a really cool example of it.
And Boise Parks and Rec needed a lot of extra seasonal employees because of all the frickin' flooding in the Boise parks earlier this year.
There was a lot of damage, so a lot of work to be done and not a lot of people to do it.
It's great that the Interfaith Sanctuary is doing this too, and from what I've heard, from what I've gathered, they are not very big on proselytizing. They are one of the places that they will help you and they will not force you to sit
their
there and listen to a
neighbors, Corpus
sermon.
Christi is.
Yeah.
The Gospel Rescue Mission
but
does.
The Interfaith almost never...
Well, and more places should be doing stuff like this too, because if you look at the baby boomers who are retiring from trades and stuff like that, we're going to have like a 30 million labor person deficit over the next 15 to 20 years because we don't have the technical institutions to teach people these trades. We should be doing this with homeless people and returned veterans and stuff like that. These are the things we need to be doing as communities. That's great.
And Interfaith Sanctuary, it is. Some of the biggest players in it are the non-Christian religions in the area, the Unitarian Universalists, humanists. It is, they don't proselytize, they provide help. And
I didn't know the Humanist Alliance was a part of the Interfaith Sanctuary.
Humanist
Or is
of
it Humanist
Idaho
of Idaho
is part of the Interfaith Alliance, and there are members who are active participants at the Interfaith Sanctuary.
Oh, awesome. I did not know that. That's great.
Including one of their officers who
We need to
is
get Jeanette
down
Ross
there every
on.
week. Yeah. Yeah, we do.
She's down there every week playing games, teaching stuff to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
She's insane.
Yeah. All right. That's it for this week, and I'm glad we were able to end it on a happy story.
Oh,
Yay.
yay.
And thank you, Ryan.
Very
It
welcome.
was a
I had
pleasure,
blast.
sir, for a surprise.
Yes.
Yeah, who
And thank
knew?
you, Justin.
Who knew?
You're welcome. Thank you for having me again.
And
Okay.
remember, not all those who wander are lost. Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Atheist Nomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice, and while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.